We've been asking for help for several minutes. My wife is in real pain.
Sir, I've already explained. We're not able to take her right now.
We're not asking for anything complicated. She just needs someone to check her.
The story began on a quiet evening in Colorado. A shocking video had already started to spread online, and it was making many people angry. A pregnant woman had gone to a private hospital in pain, but the hospital staff refused to help her. In the news report, a reporter named Pauline spoke to the anchor, John, and explained what happened. She stood outside the hospital, which was now completely closed. 2 weeks earlier, a video had shown a black couple being turned away from that same hospital. The husband in the video was named Darren, and his pregnant wife was named Lena. The senior midwife who refused to help them was named Miriam. The video started with Darren's voice. He was upset and confused. He asked, "How do you keep saying, 'Go somewhere else'?" A staff member answered coldly, "Sir, I already told you, we have policies." Darren tried to stay calm, but you could hear the pain in his voice. He said, "She's in pain. What kind of hospital?" Then came the sentence that shocked everyone who watched the video. The midwife said, "I don't touch certain types of patients." The phone camera shook a little, as if Darren's hands were not steady. It captured something terrible. His pregnant wife, Lena, sitting in a chair in the waiting room, bent over from pain. She held her stomach and tried to breathe through the discomfort. Behind the desk stood Miriam, the senior midwife, with her arms crossed. She refused to admit Lena. The camera caught her face clearly. She looked calm, not worried, not caring. Darren started filming because he felt something was very wrong. He knew this was not about paperwork, not about insurance, not about a full hospital. Something darker was happening. Earlier that evening, things had felt normal. Lena was in her last weeks of pregnancy. She began complaining about strong discomfort. It was not the usual pain she felt in late pregnancy. She told her husband that something felt wrong. Darren quickly helped her to the car. He wanted to get her checked as soon as possible. They drove to the nearest hospital, a small private place that claimed to offer good maternal care. From the outside, the building looked clean and safe, the kind of place where you would feel comfortable going for help. They walked in through the automatic doors. Darren helped Lena move slowly. She placed one hand on her belly and took short breaths as waves of pain passed through her body. The waiting room was quiet. A few people sat in chairs, and the bright hospital lights made everything look normal. They went to the reception desk. Miriam was standing there, looking at some papers. She looked up when they approached. Darren explained that his wife was pregnant and in pain. He said they needed someone to check her. There was a strange pause before Miriam answered. She didn't show concern. Instead, she asked, "Have you guys tried other hospitals?" Darren frowned. Why would she ask that? They were standing inside a hospital right now. His wife needed help immediately. He asked her why she said that and asked again if they could get help at this place. He looked around and saw empty rooms, other nurses walking in the halls, and everything looked normal for a hospital. But Miriam avoided giving a real answer. She talked about bed availability, but Darren could clearly see empty rooms. She mentioned staffing issues, but other staff members walked by without any problem. She brought out paperwork rules that made no sense for an emergency. None of her explanations felt honest. Lena grabbed Darren's arm. The pain was getting worse. Darren felt sweat on his forehead. His heart was beating fast. He feared for his wife and their unborn child. Something felt wrong, not just medically but socially. It felt like someone was trying to push them away for a reason that had nothing to do with hospital rules. That was when Darren took out his phone and started recording. His voice was shaky. He said into the camera that his wife was experiencing emergency symptoms and needed care, but the midwife was refusing to help. The camera recorded Lena's discomfort. It recorded Miriam's face. It recorded every word. When Miriam saw the camera, she did not get nervous. She did not suddenly become professional or caring. Instead, she finally said the real reason she refused to help. I don't touch certain types of patients. She said it without shame. She said it without fear. She said it as if it was normal. Darren's camera captured everything, including her tone and her expression. Darren felt anger and fear at the same time. He helped Lena back to the car. Every step she took looked painful. He kept saying, hold on, as he helped her into the seat. Then he drove fast to another hospital. He prayed they would arrive in time. He prayed his wife and baby would be okay. When they reached the second hospital, everything was different. Nurses rushed to help. They checked Lena properly. They spoke kindly. After some tests, the doctors explained that she was not in active labor, but her symptoms were serious enough for a hospital visit. They said she and the baby were not in immediate danger. Darren felt a huge wave of relief, but he also felt anger when he thought about what could have happened if the situation had been worse. Later, when Lena was resting, Darren looked at the video. He replayed the sentence, certain types of patients. He knew exactly what Miriam meant. He knew why they had been refused. He knew it was because of their skin color. In the year 2019, inside a medical facility, a pregnant woman had been refused help because of racism. Darren felt sick thinking about it. He made a decision. He was not going to keep this quiet. He posted the video online. He used the hospital's real name. He wrote clearly what happened. He wanted people to know the truth. He wanted other families to be safe. He wanted the hospital to face consequences. Soon, people started sharing the video. It spread fast. It went beyond Colorado. It reached other states. People were angry. Comments poured in. Thousands watched the video. They saw Lena in pain. They heard the midwife's words. They saw the cold expression on her face. The video became proof that discrimination happened in a place where people go to seek help. The video of Lena being refused care continued to spread online. Within hours, it reached thousands of people, and by the next morning, it had reached tens of thousands. People were shocked by the midwife's words. They replayed the moment Miriam said, I don't touch certain types of patients, and many could not believe a healthcare worker would say such a thing openly. The comments were filled with anger. People demanded justice. Some asked for the hospital to be investigated. Others shared their own painful experiences in healthcare settings. Soon, local news outlets noticed the video. Reporters began calling Darren, asking if he would like to give interviews. At first, he was unsure. He did not want to expose his family to too much attention. But he also knew that silence helps people who do wrong. So he spoke, but he and Lena asked to keep their faces blurred for safety. In the interviews, Darren described how scared he felt watching his wife suffer while someone who was supposed to help refused to do her job. Lena talked about the pain she was in and the fear of being pushed away when she needed help the most. More people shared the video. It reached regional news stations, then national ones. The hospital's social media pages were flooded. Many people left one-star reviews. Others demanded the hospital release a statement. When the hospital finally did respond, their message was short and vague. They wrote that they were reviewing the incident and taking all complaints seriously. But this did not satisfy anyone. The public wanted more than polite corporate words. They wanted responsibility. They wanted consequences. Civil rights groups soon got involved. The Colorado Justice Network held a press conference outside the hospital. Their spokesperson demanded a full investigation by the state. People gathered with signs saying equal care for all, justice for Lena, and health care should not discriminate. News cameras filmed the protest. Many people shared those videos online, making the story even bigger. Some reporters began digging into the hospital's history. They discovered that this was not the first time someone complained about discriminatory treatment there. Other patients soon came forward. One man said he had been ignored by staff when he needed urgent help. A woman said her mother was treated poorly because she did not have private insurance. Someone else said they once overheard staff making rude comments about certain patients. These stories created a pattern, and people began to see that the hospital had deeper problems than just one bad moment. State officials stepped in. The Colorado Health Department announced they would investigate the hospital. This meant reviewing records, interviewing staff, checking previous complaints, and making sure the hospital followed the law. This was not something a hospital could avoid with a simple apology. It meant real oversight and real consequences. The investigation uncovered even more problems. There were issues with documentation. Some staff members were working with outdated licenses. Some maternity procedures were not recorded correctly. It was clear that something was wrong with how the place was being managed. The discrimination caught on video became the trigger that revealed everything else. During this time, Darren and Lena had to stay strong. They were grateful for the support, but the attention was stressful. Lena was still pregnant, and she needed rest. Darren tried to keep things calm around her. He avoided telling her the worst comments he saw online. He wanted her to stay peaceful for the baby's sake, but he also knew they had done the right thing by posting the video. Without the video, the hospital might have continued treating people unfairly. Meanwhile, the hospital tried to control the situation. They hired lawyers and public relations workers. They tried posting another message online saying they do not tolerate discrimination. But by then, no one believed them. People had seen the video. They had heard the midwife's exact words. Nothing could erase that. People also discovered something surprising. Miriam, the senior midwife in the video, was not just an employee. She was the owner of the hospital. She controlled the policies, training, and culture of the place. This explained why problems seemed to go so deep. If the person in charge behaved that way, then the environment she created would reflect her beliefs. This information made the public even angrier. The investigation moved quickly. The evidence of discrimination was clear and recorded on camera. The health department suspended the hospital's license. They said the hospital could no longer treat patients until serious changes were made. But the hospital was already facing big financial problems. Lawsuits were now being filed by Lena and Darren, as well as other patients who had come forward. Legal fees increased. Insurance companies did not want to cover a place facing such public backlash. Staff quit. Patients transferred their medical records to other facilities. Then, one morning, 2 weeks after the video went viral, someone took a picture of the hospital's fence. There was a sign hanging there. It read, "We are closed." A whole hospital had shut down in just 14 days. People could hardly believe it. But the truth was simple. The video exposed the truth, and once the truth was out, the hospital could not survive. The closure was not temporary. This was not for repairs or renovations. The hospital was gone. The building stood empty. Miriam lost control of her facility. And, as the investigation continued, she faced personal consequences. Her medical license was reviewed. Professional boards questioned her behavior. She had to deal with large fines and public shame. Her career was broken. Even after the closure, the conversation continued. Other hospitals in Colorado posted statements promising equal treatment for every patient. Some did this because they believed in fairness. Others did it because they wanted to avoid similar scandals. But either way, the message was spreading. Discrimination in healthcare would not be ignored. Medical schools and nursing programs began using the video in training. Students watched it and discussed how important it is to treat all patients with respect. They learned how bias, whether open or hidden, can harm people. The video became an example of what never should happen in a medical setting. The case also raised awareness about the challenges Black mothers face in healthcare. Statistics already showed that Black women often receive less care and face higher risks during pregnancy. Lena's story became part of a larger discussion. People asked why these things happen and how to fix them. Community groups held meetings and forums. People shared stories. Healthcare workers admitted that everyone needs to check their own biases. Patients described times they felt ignored or mistreated. The conversations were uncomfortable, but important. Darren and Lena did not plan to become activists. They only wanted help. But their decision to record the moment and to share it made a big difference. Their choice brought real change. A hospital closed. Policies changed. People learned. And most importantly, the truth was seen by millions. After the hospital closed, life slowly returned to normal for Darren and Lena. But the memory of that night never left them. They had their baby safely at another hospital, where staff treated Lena with respect and care. Darren often thought about how close they had come to disaster. If Lena's labor had started faster, if the second hospital had been farther away, the outcome could have been very different. He carried a mix of relief and anger. Relief that his wife and child were safe. Anger that Miriam's actions had put them at risk just because of the color of their skin. The video they posted continued to be shared online. People still commented, thousands of miles away, about what happened. It became an example for many families to know their rights. Advocacy groups used the story in training sessions, teaching people to recognize discrimination and to speak up. Medical schools showed the video to students to explain the importance of treating all patients fairly. Darren and Lena never expected their private moment to have such a wide impact, but it did. Their decision to record and share changed the conversation about racism in healthcare. Miriam faced personal and professional consequences. Her medical license was suspended. She could not work as a midwife again. Lawsuits filed against her, and the hospital grew. Each new complaint from former patients added pressure. Financial penalties, settlements, and legal fees increased over time. The once proud hospital owner now faced public shame and legal scrutiny. The career she had built for years crumbled in the span of a few weeks. People everywhere saw what can happen when discrimination is documented and exposed. The closure of the hospital sent a strong message to other healthcare facilities. Administrators and staff began to examine their own policies and behavior. Hospitals in the area reviewed training programs for doctors and nurses. Some added new courses on implicit bias, equal treatment, and professional ethics. Staff were reminded that their actions could be recorded and shared at any moment. Many felt nervous, and for good reason. Darren and Lena's story showed that no institution is untouchable when the public demands accountability. At the same time, there was hope. The story showed that real change is possible. If one family can make a difference, so can others. People were inspired to speak up when they saw injustice, knowing that silence often protects the wrongdoer. The story of Darren and Lena became a lesson in courage, that standing up, even in fear, can create lasting impact. State regulators used the incident as an example for stricter oversight. They implemented policies requiring surprise inspections and more rigorous reporting. Hospitals now had to prove that patient complaints were handled fairly. Penalties for discrimination became clearer and more severe. For many, the Colorado case became a blueprint for accountability in healthcare. It showed that evidence, once shared publicly, could force meaningful change in policy and practice. Community organizations continued to host forums about healthcare discrimination. Patients shared experiences, doctors admitted biases, and civil rights advocates pushed for fairness. Darren and Lena attended some of these discussions, but they did not want to be the center of attention. They spoke when asked, telling their story honestly. They explained how fear had almost cost them their safety. They urged people to document injustice when it happened. The story became not just about them, but about educating everyone in the healthcare system. The baby, now safely delivered, grew up hearing parts of the story. Darren and Lena were careful not to overwhelm their child with details, but they wanted them to understand the importance of fairness, courage, and speaking up. They wanted their child to know that sometimes standing up for what is right can make a difference for many people, not just oneself. In a way, their family's experience became a living lesson in morality, justice, and responsibility. Even years later, the empty hospital building remained a physical reminder. A closed sign hung where patients once entered. Staff who had worked there found new jobs, often in facilities that emphasized equality and professional ethics. The building itself stood as a symbol of consequences for actions that violated law and human decency. For the community, it reminded them that no institution should be allowed to ignore discrimination, especially in healthcare where lives are at stake. Darren often reflected on the moment he decided to record. It was simple. He knew something was wrong and wanted proof. That split-second decision became the turning point. It prevented further harm to his wife, protected his child, and created a ripple effect that changed policies, education, and public awareness. Without that video, Miriam might have continued practicing. The hospital might have stayed open, harming more patients. That choice showed how documentation matters, how courage matters, and how one person's action can spark widespread change. The lawsuits continued for months. Legal settlements were reached, providing some financial compensation to Darren, Lena, and other affected patients. No amount of money could erase the fear, pain, and trauma they experienced. But the settlements, along with public accountability, brought a sense of justice. The law had been enforced. Discrimination had been challenged. People learned that breaking rules and violating rights comes with consequences. The community saw that the system could work when evidence was clear and public pressure was strong. Healthcare professionals everywhere studied the case. Training programs incorporated it as a lesson on ethics, bias, and patient rights. Medical boards reminded members that behavior in practice is accountable, not just to management but to law and public standards. The story of Darren and Lena became part of lectures, discussions, and manuals, ensuring future generations of healthcare providers learn from this clear example of injustice and accountability. Darren and Lena also noticed changes in public attitude. People became more aware of discrimination in healthcare. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues shared their stories of bias and mistreatment. Conversations that were once private became public, constructive, and aimed at solutions. Communities started demanding equality, and hospitals had to respond. Awareness grew beyond Colorado, influencing discussions in other states and across medical institutions nationwide. The couple continued their life quietly but meaningfully. They raised their child with love, teaching lessons about fairness and courage. They knew that what they went through would not define their family entirely, but they also understood that their story was important. It had opened doors for broader discussion, inspired new laws, and prevented similar harm to others. Their pain had created a legacy of accountability. Finally, Darren reflected on the lessons learned. Discrimination in healthcare is real and ongoing. Racism is not a thing of the past. It affects people every day. Documentation matters. Speaking up matters. Public awareness matters. Social media can be a tool for justice when used wisely. Institutions can be held accountable, but only when individuals refuse to remain silent. Their experience proved that truth, once documented, cannot be ignored. In the end, Miriam lost her hospital. Her career was destroyed. The building remained empty. Policies changed. Awareness increased. Darren and Lena had their child. Lives were saved. Communities learned lessons. And the world saw that accountability is possible, even in the face of entrenched discrimination. Their story became a warning, a lesson, and a symbol. It reminded everyone that standing up for what is right, recording injustice, and demanding fairness can create change, even against powerful institutions. The Colorado hospital story ended with a closed sign on the fence, but the real impact continued far beyond the empty building. Lawsuits, policy changes, public awareness, and education created lasting effects. Racism in healthcare remained a challenge, but this case proved that action, courage, and documentation could make a difference. Darren and Lena's decision to record the injustice had shown that even ordinary people, in moments of fear and desperation, can spark extraordinary change.